Welcome to The Topic on HCC TV. This is a show where we highlight Houston Community College, our students, our programs, and our reach into the community. I'm Todd Duplantis. Good to have you with us. If you're watching us in social media, remember you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We're across all social media platforms. The way you find us, you look for Houston Community College District. Go to our YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe, and you'll get notices when these shows are posted. We also have podcasts available for all of our shows. You can download the audio versions of the show at hccs.edu/podcasts. 2021 marks HCC's 50th anniversary. That's right. We're in the midst of it right now. Throughout this year, we've been speaking with some of our HCC family, friends, and colleagues about their journey with the college. Kelly Frels has been with HCC, or he was with HCC, before the beginning. He is, of course, with Bracewell LLC. As a young lawyer with that firm, he was intimately involved in the creation of Houston Community College. Kelly Frels, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here with us.
Glad to be here.
Always good to see you. I want to ask you, community colleges are looked at much differently now than they were, say, 20 years ago, but I can't imagine 50 years ago. Maybe you can describe the environment in higher education in Texas in the early 1970s.
Well, there were very few community colleges. And in 1965, Tarrant County and Dallas County approved the creation of community colleges, but an election failed here in Harris County in 1968. So the HISD board decided that it would be a good idea to have a community college sponsored by the Houston Independent School District.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that many years ago, we were part of Houston ISD, and community colleges back then, were they looked at more like trade schools or vocational schools, or maybe schools you'd catch up on as a night school?
Well, actually, HCC was created for two reasons. One is to provide vocational training courses, which we now call technical courses, basically to train people for the trades. And for secondly, to provide a step between high school and four-year colleges. So the idea was to do both. And so that's what was actually done in the fall of 1971, is that they began the trade school vocational technical courses. And then in the spring of 1972, they expanded those courses and added the academic part of it.
It sounds like a great idea, but back then there was a lot of contention and controversy, it seems like, in getting something like this launched. What were your biggest battles in bringing this to the table? I mean, everybody could be on board saying that sounds like a great idea, but what were the battles you had to fight?
Well, the battles obviously were anti-taxers, and we had anti-taxers back in 1970. And they were the ones who defeated the creation of the independent community college. And they were actively engaged in trying to prevent the creation of the community college by the Houston Independent School District, which began, incidentally, with the telephone call I received on October 27, 1970.
Tell us about that phone call.
Well, the phone call was from George Garber, who was the superintendent of schools. And George said that the board would like to create a community college that was a part of HISD. Because remember, for those of you who may not remember or have heard, but the University of Houston actually started as the community grades 13 and 14 of the Houston Independent School District, and then got separated out and became a state institution. But it was the anti-taxers led by the Houston Tribune, the Houston Chronicle, and a number of others who were opposed to the creation of a community college. They ultimately got on board a little bit in saying they were in favor of the community college, but they didn't like the tax. So it was kind of strange. The Houston Post and a large number of business leaders, the Houston Chamber of Commerce, the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston, labor union folks, all got in favor of it. The Houston Junior Bar even got involved, the League of Women Voters, and it passed overwhelmingly by 61.5% in May of 1971.
Was it expected to pass when the vote went up? Were there a lot of people thinking that this just isn't going to fly? I mean, I imagine people were thinking it's great for people to go to college, but we just don't want it coming out of our pockets.
Yeah, and that's the reason it was created like it was by the Houston Independent School District, because you could use the the money that came from the state. I think it was $580 or something like that, plus $50 tuition, and use the facilities of the Houston Independent School District, so that you didn't need a tax base, you didn't need taxes. You could do it like that if the HISD contributed what it did. And of course, there were problems with teachers in the daytime using a classroom, teachers at nighttime using classroom. You know, it required some real internal politics.
As HCC grew, we eventually separated from Houston ISD. You were part of that process. How did that come about?
Well, for years, you had a separate set of officers for the Houston Community College than you did for HISD. And so it got to the point of when you grew that much, you needed to separate it. So we went to the legislature and asked for a special bill to separate it. And I think that was in 1989. And so the board at that time then appointed a separate board for the Houston Community College.
When you first were working on getting this started, did you envision us getting this big as to where we are now? I mean, you obviously thought this was going to grow into something, but did you see it being this big?
Well, in a way, because we had leaders who had that kind of vision. They wanted it to really develop into something that would provide what Houston needed for the growth of the economy and growth of the city. But I didn't expect it to be quite as successful and as far-reaching as it has been. And that goes true for all the community colleges. They're now filling a very different role than they were in the past. And I think they're going to continue to increase.
What is the thing you're most proud of getting working to get this started? And when you're looking back, if you could think of one thing like that, that really was something I'm proud of.
This was one of my absolute most exciting projects I ever worked on. And it was 1 month after I'd been sworn in as a lawyer. So that was fun. The other was the creation of the magnet schools for HISD and a couple of other things. But this one is one of the top 3 projects that I worked on as a lawyer.
We've been talking with Kelly Frels. He was a lawyer that was instrumental in getting us launched as a community college 50 years ago. As HCC celebrates our 50th anniversary, we're going to return. We've got some more special guests who've been here for quite some time. One of them you're going to recognize. We'll have her on in a few moments. Kelly, thanks for being here. We hope to see you again soon.
Great. I look forward to it.
We're going to be back with more of the topic right after this.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes. You can do it here. But I get it, you're busy, and busy people can't have prediabetes. I read that wrong. They can, okay. Just go to the site.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
If a natural disaster shows up at your doorstep, you can't just turn it away. That's why it's important to prepare for emergencies before they show up. Go to ready.gov/plan to find the tools and tips you need. And make a plan today.
Welcome back to the topic on HCC TV. Thanks for watching us on our cable channel. You can also watch us in social media. Look at all of our shows. Look for us as Houston Community College District. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can subscribe to it and get notifications when we post brand new shows like this one. We also have audio podcasts available on our podcast network. Go to hccs.edu/podcasts. Okay, we're talking about HCC's 50th anniversary. We're in the midst of it in 2021, and we're talking with some of our longtime employees here at HCC. Dr. Norma Perez joins the college in 1983 as a counselor manager. Since then, she served in a variety of academic and administrative roles, and she's now currently our Vice Chancellor of Instructional Services and Chief Academic Officer. A great friend of the show. Good to see you, Dr. Perez.
Thank you, Todd. Good to see you as well. Happy to be here.
Let me ask you, when you first started with HCC, I understand we were in a much smaller location off of Waugh Drive. And I believe last time I drove by it, I think it's somewhat of a upgraded sports store or something along those lines. But it was 22 Waugh Drive, the district offices.
That is correct. And who would have known that when I started back in 1983, I started out in the district office. And here I am 38 years later, still working out of the district office. But of course, having been in various positions throughout my career at Houston Community College.
Let's talk about some of those positions. Maybe you can name them off. We know you started as the counselor manager. What happened then? And maybe you can tell us the roles you went through getting to chief academic officer.
Well, you know, when I started out as a counselor manager, was through a grant program. And so I actually had 3 offices. I worked out of the district office, which was my main office, but then I also had an office at Barbara Jordan High School and an office at Milby High School. And so my job there was, of course, working with minority students and focusing on the transfer of our students. That award did not get funded for another year, so that grant ran out. And evidently, I impressed my supervisor that she had a vacancy, and she decided that I would move into that vacancy. And then I became the grants development director, and so, or specialist actually at that time. And so I did that. And again, it gave me the opportunity to work out of the president's suite. At the time, we had a president, not a chancellor, which was Dr. Whiteley. I really enjoyed that. Of course, it kept me in the limelight. And so after that position, I applied for the counselor manager, the counseling officer, guidance and counseling officer for the district. So here I worked out of Jackson Hill then, 320 Jackson Hill, right around the corner from 22 Waugh Drive. A beautiful view of downtown. I really love that office. And unfortunately, I had to give that up when I moved on to other positions. But again, as the counseling officer, I oversaw all of the counseling services for the district and working with the different campus directors, which we had at that time. I was very fortunate to be able to bring in 10 new counseling positions, and some of those individuals are still with us today. From there were some issues with we did another contract with the eligible legalized alien program. I was asked by the chancellor back then to step in, and by that time we had a chancellor, to step in and work on some issues that dealt with working with that community. And so I did that. And then after that, we sort of restructured them. This is when the colleges came into place. So as a result of that, the establishment of colleges, I then became the Assistant Dean of Enrollment Services for the Northeast College. And then from there, I became the Associate Dean of Health Sciences. And from there, I then went back to the district as the Director of Assessment, and then back again to the Northeast College as the Executive Dean. And then I ended up back at the district as the Associate Vice Chancellor, and now I am the Vice Chancellor of Instructional Services.
Was that about a dozen different roles?
That's about it, does it? Yes, I became very familiar, and again, I went back to Northeast twice, actually. So I enjoy all of my job opportunities. Really thought I made a major impact in each of those areas.
You were first came on board, and Houston ISD was still over us, I imagine, with their board of trustees. And when was HISD's board of trustees established? And let's talk about that, because it was at one time decided that we needed our own board of trustees.
Yes, and I remember the discussions going on at that time. I don't recall exactly when that happened, but I do know that when we became separate colleges, I believe we already had our separate board at that time. And I remember that my first role as an assistant dean was back in 1992 is when that happened. So I do recall that there was a lot of involvement with we've always had very good communication with the state legislators from our area. And I know that they were very much involved. I do remember hearing John Whitmire's name tossed around a great deal. And so I'm assuming that he probably took the lead in taking it to the state legislature to make it happen in terms of the division. And then I recall that all of the board of trustees from HISD, then to start off the new board, the new HCCS board, they were allowed to appoint before they held the election. So all of the new HCC board members were all appointees from their counterparts within HISD.
And of course, we originally had become 5 colleges, and then Coleman College was added. Of course, now we have a 7th college with the online college, but becoming 5 colleges, that really must have been a big move for Houston Community College, because it shows how big we were growing and the need in various parts of town.
Right. And I think that the intent with the board at that time was, again, to try to better meet the needs of each community, because they came to realize that each community was very different, very unique, and had its own needs. So the idea was to create the different colleges, hoping to better meet the needs of those the students and, of course, the community.
And I imagine you remember when Coleman College of Health Sciences was first established. I believe it was it a center first before it became what it is now with an institution of its own?
Yes, it was. It was a center as part of the Southeast College, actually. And so I was very fortunate that, before that, as was, we shared facilities with HISD. So prior to that, the health science facility was part of the High School for Health Professions. And as a result of deciding, and I believe this is under Dr. Burgo Sasser, she decided that we needed our own health science facility. And so she moved, she talked with the Texas Medical Center, with their assistants. We were able to get the property. And from that became the development of the Coleman, it's Coleman College now, but the Coleman Health Science Center. And I was very fortunate to be able to lead in the creation, the drawings of how we wanted to see that facility created. Working, of course, with all the program directors, because they were the experts in the field. We were able to work with the architects and develop the building that you see currently now at the Medical Center.
And it is an incredible facility. If you haven't seen it, it is one of a kind, certainly located in the heart of the Texas Medical Center. Dr. Norma Perez, she's our Chief Academic Officer. We appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Todd.
Thanks for being here. Okay, we're continuing our 50th anniversary celebration on the topic. We've got another guest lined up. He's about 60 seconds away. We'll be back right after this.
The faculty at HCC represents the best of the city. They're committed to getting our students to their goals.
A 4-year degree.
Workforce training. A better life.
HCC, for everyone, anytime, anyway.
For more than a year, we have kept you informed with more than 500 remote episodes. But now we're back, bigger and better, with more news and more guests. Join us live every weekday at 10 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube. and on HCC TV at noon and 5 p.m. You can watch from anywhere. We go where you go.
That one day at PE when they were like yelling at me, and then you just linked arms with me. I don't think you know how much like that helped me. I finally like knew that I had somebody.
Welcome back to The Topic. I'm Todd Duplantis. Of course, you're watching us on HCC TV. Look for us in social media. You can find us as Houston Community College District. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. We are all over the place. Follow us in social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you get notifications when shows just like this one are posted. We also have a podcast network. You can download the audio versions of all of our shows and listen to them at your convenience at hccs.edu/podcasts. All right, we're talking about HCC's 50th anniversary. 2021 is the year. We're in the middle of it right now. Dr. Abe Bryant joined HCC as an adjunct chemistry instructor in 1973, and he soon became one of HCC's first 20 full-time instructors. He served the college as chemistry department head, coordinator for math science, campus manager, campus director, and interim college operations officer. He's currently director of auxiliary services and campus operations for the Northeast College. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Bryant. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. You forgot I also sweep out the place.
You sweep the place at night. That's right. That's right. But the question is, when you get home, does your wife Willie make you sweep there as well?
Yes, she does.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. That doesn't surprise me. All right. Dr. Bryant, it's good to have you on the show. Maybe you can talk to us about when you first started with HCC. We've talked with the other guests, and a lot of folks may not know that HCC was part of Houston ISD. And maybe you can talk about that association when you first started.
Okay, yes, I can, Todd. The view of other local colleges and universities was that HCC was just an extension of HISD, and they considered us the 13th and 14th grade, like Kelly has said that U of H started. They considered us 13th and 14th grade as well because we utilized the same facilities, we had the same board of directors, and so it was very challenging to change that image or that perception. And it was not easy, but we did work towards getting our classes for our students to transfer. They didn't want to do that. They said that because we're 13th and 14th grade, that if they took our classes, then our students will also have to retake their classes once they got to their other universities. And that was true of all of the local universities around here. They did not take our classes full value because of that image.
Right. And what were the students like at that time? Were they similar to the age range that students are now? Did you have a lot of students coming from high school directly, or were they older students who were going to night school?
Well, at that time, they were the older students. They were the older students going to night school. None of them are coming back from the Vietnam War. They were veterans trying to get back into school and take advantage of the free education. So the average student, I would think, was about 25 or 26 years of age. We did not have very much of the high school student. I guess at that time, it wasn't, community college was not popular among the high school students. And then at the same time, the high school students could very well say, I go here in the daytime, and then I'm going here at night in the same facility. They didn't take us quite serious.
When did they start taking us seriously? Obviously, you said one of the battles HCC had to fight were getting the courses accepted by the University of Houston's, UTs, so that students could transfer and make their college experience and credits from HCC meaningful. When did all that take place in getting accreditation for HCC?
Well, contrary to popular belief, HCC did not open up as an accredited institution. So for a while, we had students graduating from HCC. They were graduating from a non-accredited institution. I was not into politics, but I was told at the time that it would ordinarily take 7 to 9 years for an institution to become accredited. We did it in 5.
Wow.
And we were proud of the fact that there were many nights we burnt the oil trying to make sure that our students were treated fairly and equally once they transferred to another university. So we worked hard at that. So I think that after we became accredited, then our standing improved a little bit in the community as well as the universities.
You got the accreditation, but then in many cases, y'all were using Houston ISD's facilities at nights. Let's talk about getting into your own buildings and where we are now.
Okay, well, one thing for sure, they did not want us there, the teachers. I would think, and this is what I was told, that the principals, they did not mind us being there because maybe they were compensated some kind of way. I don't know. But I do know that in the classroom, it was very challenging. The high school teachers would write on the blackboard. We didn't have no whiteboards. They had blackboards. They would write on the blackboard all their teaching and lesson plans, and then they'd use up 90% of the space and then put a sign out there, please do not erase. But then when we come in the evening time to teach, we had no space. And therefore, a number of times, if you honored the do not erase, you had to have your students turn their chairs around so they can see the little corner of the blackboard that you were about to write on. They did not want us to use any of their laboratory equipment. They did not want us to use any of their supplies. They even removed the white chalk from the boards. So when we went in, we had a tough time. We did. So it was not easy. They just didn't want us there.
Abe, I'll ask you this final question, and I've asked everyone else. Did you see us getting this big when you were first starting and moving on with HCC?
No, I didn't. I did not. I was just out of graduate school when HCC started. And I do know that some of my colleagues at the time said, I will not work for HCC. They needed an instructor. They needed part-time teachers. HCC is not going to last. It's going to fold. It's a part of HISD. So within 10 years, they will be gone. I had everything to gain and nothing to lose myself. So I took the gamble. But no, I did not think it was going to last this long.
We've been talking with Dr. Abe Bryant. He's the Director of Auxiliary Services and Campus Operations for HCC's Northeast College. He's been here since 1973, and we're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year in 2021. Abe, thanks for being here this afternoon.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
We're going to wrap up today's show. Make sure you join us next time on the topic. And as I mentioned before, follow us in social media as Houston Community College District and download our podcast at hccs.edu/podcast. I'm Todd Duplantis. I'll see you next time.
You.